We begin today the Gemara on Daf Samachay, 14 lines down from the top of the Yamud. The Gemara here begins to explain what we learned here in the Mishnah, which are the details of the halacha of Oyla Sa'if, a bird that's brought as an Oyla, and the way it's brought from the beginning, the Malika and all the other details is different than even the Chata Sa'if, and of course different than the way the Avodah by a Behema is. So Tana Rabbanon, we learned in a Braise, in the Pasuk it says V'hikrivoi. It says V'yikrivi akayin ala mizbeach. It brings it to the mizbeach. Ma tamad loymar. This lashon there V'yikrivi akayin is extra. L'fisha nemar, because it already says in the pasuk before. V'hikriv min atayrim oy mibnei ayayna. So it says V'hikriv. Why does it say again V'yikrivi? Because the answer is Yachayil. I would think hamisnadav oif, a person that donates, he makes a dove to bring a bird as a carbon. So I would think that lo yivchais mishnei peredin, that he can't bring less than 2 birds, as it says in the pasuk before, that v'hikriv min atayrim oy min bnei hayayna, a plural term. Talmud loymar v'hikrivoi afilu pereda achas, that even one, he should also bring a lamizbeach, as it says in this pasuk, v'hikrivoi akayin a lamizbeach, even only one. Oh, no, actually, a lamizbeach is read separately. Afilu pereda achas yavi. Now, the Gemara dashens the extra words of El HaMizbeach. Why does it have to say that the Kayin brings it to the Mizbeach? It's also obvious and it's extra words. Ma Tamad Loymar. Let me read and explain this again. When it says V'yikrivei HaKayin El HaMizbeach, that is, the Gemara is going to focus now on the word HaKayin that it says here. It could have said in the Pasuk, that's how you read this Gemara, it could have said in the Pasuk, El HaMizbeach, that he brings it to the Mizbeach. And there, it's telling you the location, actually. El HaMizbeach is important. It's telling you the location where you do the Malika. But Matamad Loymar HaKayin. Why does it have to say that it's the Kayin? The answer is L'kvaya Loy Kayin. It's coming to say that the Malika of the bird must be done by the Kayin. And why do I need the pasuk to tell this to me? Because sheyachal, otherwise I would think to say v'halei dinu, I can make the following kavachemer, that it's not necessary to have the kayin to do the malika, because umah ben sayin shekavalei tzafin. If when it comes to sheep, by an animal, when you shecht it, and there the Torah establishes and limits the place where it could be done, it must be done in the north, and over there leikavalei kayin. Although you have that stringency, but at the same time, the person that does the shchita does not have to be a kain. Any zar could do shchita. So oif shaloi kavalei tzafin. So by a bird that does not have this stringency, and it does not have to be done only on the north of the azara. So in a din shaloi yikvalei kain. You would think that definitely it doesn't have to be done only by a kain. Talmud loymar ela kayin. Therefore, the kayin here, the pasuk here says that hakayin doesn't say it says elam mizbech hakayin elam mizbech. It says hakayin lekvaya lo kayin, that the malika must be done by a kayin. Another detail I learn out from this yachal yimlekenu b'sakin. I would think that the malika is just like shchita. It's not done with the nail of the thumb. It's done with a knife. And v'dinu, I would make a kavachaymer to say that it should be done with a knife. Just like when it comes to shchita. Shaloi kavala kayin. By shchita, it must not be done by a kayin, so there's a leniency here. But kavala keli. But you must do it with a knife, with a klisharis, a knife, in order to shecht. Malika, shakavala kayin. So by malika that we see that the kayin is more stringent, that it must be done by a kayin, and it didn't sheyikvala keli. Definitely you should need a keli, a klisharis, to be makdish the carbon, that it should be done properly, not with a fingernail. Talmud loymar, so the pasuk here says, kayin, it says, hakayin lamazbech umalak, which means that the kayin is the one that does it with his own physical body, not with a knife. Rabbi Kiva explains, now Rabbi Kiva is actually the Tana of this Braisa, what we just learned. It's all Rabbi Kiva, but here Rabbi Kiva is explaining the drasha that it was just said in the Braisa before. Would you think that a zar could come to the Mizbeach and do the Malika? Since the Malika of the Oyla Sa'if is done on the Mizbeach. As the Mishnah said, the Oyla Sa'if, you have to go onto the Mizbeach, on the Seiviv, and then you go to the corner, the Mizrach is Draimis corner on the Mizbeach itself, and there you do the Malika, and then you squeeze it out on the Mizbeach, and so on. So if you're on the Mizbeach, so then a zar is not allowed to go on the Mizbeach. So do I need a pasuk to say that it must be a Kayin and not a zar? So Ela ma tamut loymar Kayin. When the pasuk here says kayin, what is it coming to teach me? Shetei melike ba'atzmai shel kayin. It's coming to say that the act of the melike is done with the body of the kayin itself, with the nail of the thumb. I would think that you could do the melike both on the top, on the mizbeach, and at the bottom as well. Talmud Loimar, so the pasuk says umalak vehikter, that after the melike you burn it on the mizbeach. Just like the burning of the carbon of the spirit is on top of the mizbeach, af melike bereish mizbeach. So to the melike is done when you are on the mizbeach. Now, another detail about the melike, how exactly is the melike done? When it says umalak, and this is here by the oilas ha'oif, so the melike is done mimul oiref, from the back of the neck. That's the location of where the kohen is going to sever the head from the body. Now, ata oimer mimul oiref, you say that over here by melike, by the bird, which is a oila, that it means from the back. Maybe the melike here should be done from the front, from the throat, and vidinu. And I would say, so vidinu. So I learned this out. I could compare this because nemar kan umalak, the nemar lahalon umalak. This is the Gemara's answer. That I learned it out as follows: that because it says here by the oilas ha'oif, the term umalak, and here by oilas ha'oif, the pasuk does not spell out the location, but it also says umalak by the chatas ha'oif. Now over there by the chatas ha'oif, the pasuk does say the location. It says clearly in the pasuk umalak es rosha mimul arpai. That's from the back. So mal alon mimul oiref avkan mimul oiref. So I compared the oilas ha'oif to the chatas ha'oif, that the melike is done from the back of by the neck. Now, if I'm comparing, now you say that we compare the oilas ha'oif to the chatas ha'oif. So if so, I would think to say mal alon moilik ve'ena mavdol. By the chatas ha'oif, the melike is done, and you do not sever the head from the body. And according to Rashi, this means that you only cut one of the two simonim, only one of the pipes of the bird, and the other you do not. So avkan moilik ve'ena mavdol. I would say that here by the oilas ha'oif, since I'm comparing it to the chatas, that the melike should also be done similar, and you do not separate the head from the body. Talmud Loimar, so over here regarding the oilas ha'oif, the pasuk says umalak vehikter. And I compare the two again and say, Mak tore hareish la'atzmai v'haguf la'atzmai. Just like regarding the burning of the bird on the mizbeach, the head is burned separately and the body is burned separately, as the Gemara will bring soon. Af melike sareish, af melike, that is, so too when it comes to do melike, the melike is done, that it should be hareish la'atzmai, the head should be for itself, and v'haguf la'atzmai, and the body should also be for itself. Now, minaye and shaktoras hareish ba'atzmai v'haguf ba'atzmai. How do I know that the head is burnt separately and the body of the bird is burnt separately? Because it says two expressions in the pasuk. Shenema v'hikter aisai. First, it says that you should divide and you open it up, and then v'hikter aisai, you burn in the mizbeach. Hareak toras haguf amura. So that's referring to burning the body of the bird on the mizbeach. And hasahamani mekayim. So if so, what do I learn from what it said? And this actually already says earlier in the pasuk. V'hikter ha mizbecha. It says in the pasuk a second time that you burn it on the mizbeach. B'aktoras hareish akasav medaber. There it's speaking about the head. In the first pasuk it speaks about the melika or malakas reishai, and it says v'hikter ha mizbecha. So that goes on the reish that you burn the head on the mizbeach. And in the next pasuk it speaks about the guf v'shisai sabechnafav, that you split it open and that you burn the body on the mizbeach. And the pasuk says regarding the oilas ha'oif v'nimtza damai, you should squeeze out the blood on the mizbeach. This means kulai. You squeeze it out all on the mizbeach. It doesn't say midam, it says damai. All of the blood from the head and the body of this bird should be squeezed out on the mizbeach. Al kira mizbeach, it says in the pasuk that you squeeze it out on the wall of the mizbeach. Where? On which part of the wall of the mizbeach? So first the Braisa says that means on the wall of the mizbeach, v'le al kira kevesh, not on the wall of the ramp of the mizbeach, v'le al kira heichal, and not in the kir, on the wall of the heichal. Now ve'ezeh zeh, which section of the wall of the mizbeach? Zeh kir ha'elyon, has to be squeezed out on the upper part of the wall of the mizbeach. Ve'enoi elo kira tachten. Maybe I would say that it should be squeezed out on the lower part of the wall of the mizbeach, and v'dinu. I can make the following kal v'chaimer that it should be done, the oilas ha'oif should be done on the lower part of the Mizbeach, because ma beheme shechatos salamaylo, when it comes to an animal. So the blood of the chatos is placed on the top of the Mizbeach. But the oila, the blood is sprayed on the bottom. So oif shechatos lamata, when it comes to the bird, a chatos, the blood is placed on the, or squeezed out on the bottom of the Mizbeach. So the blood of the oila should definitely be on the lower part of the Mizbeach. So Talmud Loima, we learn from the Seder of what it says in the pasuk umalak, then it says v'hiktir, and then it says v'nimtza damai. So you read the pasuk in the order that it says it, that you do malika and then you burn it and then you squeeze out the blood. That's impossible. V'chisala al daitcha. Would you think that la'acha shehikter, that after you already burnt the bird, chayzer u'mematza, after this you're going to squeeze out the blood on the mizbeach? So Elo, the answer is the Seder in the pasuk is coming to teach you the location of where you squeeze it out on the mizbeach. It's coming to compare and tell you ma haktore bereisha mizbeach, just like the burning is on the top of the mizbeach. Af mitzui bereisha mizbeach. So too, when you squeeze out the body of the bird onto the mizbeach for the blood to go on the mizbeach, that's on the upper half of the mizbeach. So ha ketzad. After all the details we saw here, so how is the oila sa'if brought? What's done? Ha oila bekevesh. The kohen goes up the ramp with the bird. And he turns off to the right on the smaller ramp that takes him onto the ledge, on the seivev that goes around the mizbeach. He comes to the southeastern corner. So then you do the malika from the back with his finger nail. Arfa, again, mimul arpa, that is mimul arpa, from the back of its neck. Umavdo. And by the oila sa'if, you must separate the head from the body completely. According to Rashi, it doesn't mamish mean you have to sever it completely, but it means you have to cut with the nail both of the simanim of the bird. And then umamatze dama should be, not mid dama, we saw before that it has to be all the blood. And umatze dama, or the dama mismatze, al kira mizbeach. The blood has to be squeezed out onto the wall of the mizbeach. Now, im asa lamata miraglov, if he squeezes out the blood of the mizbeach below his feet, so the kohen is standing where? On the seivev, on the ledge going around the mizbeach, and if the kohen bent down and he squeezed out the blood of the bird on the below his feet, afila amma, up to one amma below his feet, ksheira, it'll still be kosher. Why? Because this is still considered to be the upper half of the mizbeach, because there was a chut sikra, that line, that red line that went around the mizbeach, which was an amma below the seivev, if I remember correctly. And therefore, even if he bends down and he squeezes out the blood below the seivev, under his feet, it's still going to be part of the upper half of the mizbeach, and it's going to be kosher. Doesn't have to squeeze it out on the upper part of the mizbeach, close to the roof of the mizbeach, as long as it's above that chut sikra that goes around the mizbeach. However, Rav Nechemia, Rav Eliezer, Ben Yaakov Oimrim, they disagree. They both say that kol atzma ein nasis ela bereisha mizbeach. That no, the entire point there about where it's squeezed out is that it should be done dafke close to the top of the mizbeach. Why? Because we learned out before, what was the source that the blood of this oila sa'if is squeezed out on the top of the mizbeach? It's because we compare to the vehikter, the place where the oila sa'if is burnt. So just like the oila sa'if is burnt on the top, on the roof of the mizbeach, so too when you're squeezing it out, it's not enough that it should be at least on the upper half of the mizbeach, even if it's below the seivev, above the chut hasikra, but it actually has to be closer up to the top of the mizbeach where you burn the actual carbon. So the Gemara explains, "My benayu." What is the explanation? What is the basis of the machlokes between the Tanakama and Rav Nechemia, Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov? So Abai and Rav Damri Tarvayu, Abai and Rav both explained, Oise marache al gabi soiviv ike benayu. The source of their machlokes is whether in a situation where there's no space on top of the mizbeach to burn a carbon, could you then go ahead and make a little fire on the ledge going around the mizbeach and burn a carbon there? The Tanakama says that if you need to, if you want to, you could make a fire even on that ledge. And therefore, when you're going to squeeze the bird right below the seivev on the upper half of the mizbeach, it qualifies to be considered that you're squeezing it b'makom aktara. It's close to the makom aktara because b'diavad, if there's no space, you could make a fire there. On the seivev. Mashenken of Nechemia and Rav Eliezer ben Yaakov say no. The fire is only on the top of the mizbeach, never on the seivev. and therefore when you squeeze out the blood, it has to be close to the place where you're making the fire, not below the seivif. Then when it comes to the body of the bird, so what do? So the Mishnah said you take out certain parts and you throw it on the mizbeach. You have to split open the body of the bird and you take out certain parts and you burn it on the mizbeach, and then afterwards you burn the rest of the body on the mizbeach as well. So the Gemara brings a source for this from the Braise, Tanur Rabbanan. It says in the pasuk ve'heser es mur asai b'noit sasa. What does this pasuk mean? What's the mur asai zu zefek? This refers to the zefek, which is the crop. Now, Yochel, I would think that how is this done? How do you take out the crop from the bird? That yakter bisakin v'yitlenu. That you go inside with a knife and you cut it out from just the inside this zefek, and you take it out and throw it on the mizbeach. Or actually the zefek, what's done with the zefek? It's not thrown in the mizbeach. What did we learn before? The zefek is what's thrown inside the deshen, right? One second. Right, the zefek was thrown, if I remember correctly, on the deshen, yeah? Mm-hmm. Okay, what? I think it was the mula and zefek and no, I'm trying to remember if that was by the chata saif or by the oila saif, right? I think it was also by the oila saif that we learned before, that it was thrown on the deshen. That's what we learned yesterday, that you throw it sometimes from a far location. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it was thrown onto the deshen. So he takes out the zefek, if I remember correctly. And so now you would think that you go inside and you take it out with a knife and you throw it. So Tamid Loimar, then the pasuk says bin noit sasa, with the feathers, which means noitel es hanoitzeima. You're not just cutting it out on the inside, but you're sort of making a hole, because you're cutting it out together with the skin and the feathers, and that's what you're taking out to throw. Ima, together with it. Now, that's one opinion. How you darshan what the meaning of the pasuk, the word bin noit sasa means. It refers to taking it out completely together with the feathers. Ben Yochanan noitla, you take out the zefek, v'noitl kurkavana ima, and you also take out the kurkavan, which is what the noit sasa in the pasuk means. The kurkavana is the gizzard, which is a certain section in the stomach of the bird. So that's what the noit sasa means. So it's not referring to the feathers that you take out together with the crop, but it's another part in the bird, the gizzard. The Rabbi Shmuel Taneh, in the Braise of Rabbi Shmuel, it said, like the first opinion, b'neitzasa means b'neitza shalot, together with the feathers, which means koidra b'sakin kimin aruba. You make a hole inside the bird when you're cutting out the zefek, because you don't only take out the inside, you take out and you cut out like a hole together with the skin and the feathers that are there. Continuing to what it said in the Mishnah, Shisa v'loi hivdil, that when it comes to the bird, so you're supposed to split it open. So if you split it open and you did not separate it, v'loi hivdil that is, and he's not supposed to separate the body of the bird completely into two. Tanur Rabbanan, so we learned in the Braise, v'shisa, what does v'shisa mean? Ein shisua ele b'yad. This, when you split it open, you tear it, split it open, this is done by hand. This is the meaning of the pasuk where it says Vayishaseyu keshesa hagedi, that he split it open and it was done with his hand, as the pasuk there says Vayishaseyu keshesa hagedi u'ma ein b'yodeh. There's nothing else in his hands, so that means that it's opened up like it's done over there with the hands. Over here it's done with the hands as well. Now the Mishnah went on to say Lo heiser es hamura, if you did not take out the mura, and the Mishnah says that it's not going to passel the avodah that's done with the bird as a carbon. But then the Mishnah went on to say, though, that if you did not remove the mura, that's something that's not going to passel the carbon. But there is other things that will passel the avodah with this bird. The Mishnah said that by the carbon chatos, if you split open the bird completely into two, or by the oila, if you did not split it open into two, it's going to passel. Because the way it's supposed to be done is by the chatos, it's not supposed to be split open completely. Not supposed to divide it into two parts. By the oila, it is supposed to be divided into two parts. So if you switch that, and by the chatos, you split the body into two halves, then it's going to be passel. That's what it said in the Mishnah. It says the Gemara, Masnisin deloi Rab Elazar b'Rab Shimon. What it said in the Mishnah is not like what Rab Elazar b'Rab Shimon says. Tanya and Abraisa, we learned, Rab Elazar b'Rab Shimon. Rab Elazar b'Rab Shimon said, Shamaiti, I heard, Shamavdilin b'chata sa'if, that you could separate the chata sa'if into two, just like it's done by the Oila Sa'if. Right, so this Lashon Mavdilin means that it's not the way it's L'chatchila supposed to be done by the Chata Sa'if. But if you separated the Chata Sa'if into two, similar to the way it's usually done by the Oila Sa'if, then it's still going to be kosher. But the Tan and the Mishnah said that if you separate the body of the Chata Sa'if into two, since it's being done similar to the Oila Sa'if, it's going to be possible. Says the Gemara, "My benayo." What's the basis? What's the explanation for the machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Elazar and Rav Shimon? Amar Rav Chisda, so Rav Chisda says their machlokes is mitzoi chata sa'oif ma'akev ike benayo. Their machlokes is regarding squeezing out the blood on the mizbeach by the chata sa'oif. Is that something that must be done or not? It should be done, but the question is whether it's ma'akev l'chatchila or not. We're talking about the mitzvah chata sa'if. Okay, it could be from the head. By the chata sa'if, the head and the body are not separated from one another. So by the chata sa'if, what's actually done is you would shake the bird and through that spray the blood on the mizbeach. And then besides the spraying, they would also then squeeze it on the mizbeach. By the oila sa'if, there was no spraying of the blood. They would just squeeze it onto the mizbeach. The question is whether by the chata sa'if, the squeezing of the bird on the mizbeach, in addition to this that they shook it and sprayed it on the mizbeach, that way is the squeezing of the bird also a must by the chata sa'if. That's the basis of the machlokes here regarding what we're speaking about. Okay, so what's the point that the Gemara explains here? Rashi explains what the Gemara is saying is that it's based on the Mishnah over here, invite on the next daf, that what passes a chata sa'if is if you're going to do the aveda with it, when it's going to become like a oila sa'if. You're doing the aveda for the chatas like the oila. That's when it passes the chata sa'if. Now, what are the two basic things that are unique regarding the oila sa'if that's different than the chata sa'if? The first thing is that you separate the yavdol, the havdalah of the head, that you mavdil the head from the body. Okay, and also the fact that you have to squeeze the blood onto the mizbeach by the oila sa'if, that's a must. Those are the two main details. Okay, the separating of the head and squeezing out the blood onto the mizbeach. So now, over here, regarding the chata sa'if, if you're going to do those two things, you're going to be mavdil, you're going to separate the head from the body, and you're also going to squeeze out the blood on the mizbeach, so then it's going to pass all the chata sa'if, because now you're doing the avodah with the chata sa'if identical to the oila sa'if. That's why I would pass it. Okay, so let me just clarify before regarding the oila sa'if, the havdalah. The point that we're talking about over here, could be I didn't say it clearly before. I just want to clarify that by the chata sa'if, when we're talking about the fact that you're not allowed to be not supposed to be mavdil, and by the oila sa'if you are mavdil, we're talking about separating the head from the body. By the chata sa'if, they did not separate the head from the body. By the oila sa'if, they did. And the machlokes here between the Tanakama and Rabbi Elazar and Rav Shimon is regarding this point. What happens if by the chata sa'if he did separate it? So the Tanakama says it's going to passel, and Rabbi Elazar and Rav Shimon says no, it's still going to be kosher. So the Gemara explains the machlokes is by the chata sa'if, do you have to squeeze the blood out? So Tanakama's opinion is mitzvah chata sa'if ma'akev, that when you do the chata sa'if, you must squeeze the blood on the mizbeach. And now, if that's the case, we're keeping the mitzvah dam ka'ovid. So since you are, or ma'akev, the Bach says, since you are squeezing out the blood on the mizbeach, so then ka'ovid ma'aser oila b'chata sa'if. It comes out that now that you're separating the head by the chata sa'if, the two main details that have to be done by the oila sa'if, you're not doing by the chata sa'if. You're separating the head and you're squeezing the blood on the mizbeach, so that's going to pass till the chata sa'if if it's done like an oila sa'if. However, Rabbi Elazar and Rav Shimon Rav Shimon says mitzvah chata sa'if loy ma'akev. By the chata sa'if, you first spray the blood on the mizbeach, and then you're supposed to, the leftovers, v'anishar badam, you're supposed to squeeze out on the mizbeach. But that's not ma'akiv though. So therefore, if he wants to cut off the head from the bird by the chata sa'if, and then he's not going to squeeze the body onto the mizbeach, it's not going to become pasul, because then it won't be similar to the oila sa'if, because he's not squeezing the blood on the mizbeach like the oila sa'if. He doesn't have to. So therefore, when he cuts off the head, he's cutting it off. It doesn't make it like a oila saif, and therefore, as Gemara says, if he's cutting and separating the head from the body, he's just cutting the flesh of the bird, and it's not going to make it similar to a oila saif, and therefore it's not going to passel this carbon according to Rav Elazar ben Rav Shimon. That's one explanation. Another explanation, Rava says, and this is all based on the same point, that what pasels achata sa'if is if you make it similar to the oila sa'if. And here the question is whether if you separate the head from the body by the chatos, will it become similar to the oila sa'if? So Rava says, shehiyeh v'simin sheni ba'oila sa'if ma'akev ikebenayu. The basis of the machlokes between the Tanakama or the Tana of the Mishnah and Abelazar ben Rav Shimon is whether when you do something in between shehiyeh, you wait, or there's something that's done in between, cutting the first siman of the bird and the second siman of the bird, is that something that's going to passel by the oila saif? That's the machlokes between them. So Rashi here explains, when you do the malika by the oila saif, over there you're supposed to do the malika of both simanim of the bird. So now when you do the malika of the two simanim, according to the Tana of the Mishnah, the malika of both simanim is not really what's the main malika. Really, the main malika is which is in the place of shchita, is just cutting one siman. Because when you cut one siman of the bird, it already takes away its life. So that's really the ikr malika. The second siman is not really part of the malika that's like in the place of shchita. That's not really what it is. The second malika is a separate thing. It's a separate mitzvah. In order to separate the head from the body, so you have to cut the second siman as well, which will separate the head of the body. But it's not part and parcel of the malika itself. So by shechita, the halacha is you can't shecht partially and then do shehiyah, stop, and then continue the shechita. So over here, regarding the malika, this is the shaila. The fact that you have to cut both simanim, do I say that both simanim is one malika? It's like the shechita that you can't stop in between, so cutting both simanim is one malika, so you can't stop in between. Or no, the malika really is one siman. And then if you want to stop in between, you could. And when you cut the second siman, that's a separate mitzvah to separate the head from the body, which is not part of the malika itself. That's the shaila over here. Okay, so this is all we're talking about when you do the malika for oila sa'if. Again, the lashon of the Gemara, Rava says, shehiyeh b'siman sheni ba'oila sa'if, if one waits between the cutting of the first siman and the second siman by the oila saif ma'akiv, will that is that going to be ma'akiv? Is that going to prevent the malika of being good? Ikabenaya, that's the argument here. So the Gemara explains. Tanakama savar, the Tanakama holds, the Tanakama that says that you should not separate the head from the body by the chatas. So he holds shehiyeh b'siman sheni by the saif le ma'akiv. By the oila, if you cut one siman and then you wait and you cut the second siman, so then it's not a problem. It's still kosher. So now it comes out regarding the carbon chatos. How is the malika done by the carbon chatos? The malika by the carbon chatos is not. You don't cut both simanim. By the carbon chatos, you cut one siman. Okay. Now, as Rashi here says, we'll see soon from the continuation of the Gemara, the way the malika by the chatos is done is you cut one siman, but then with the fingernail he has to cut around as well. Cut around most of the basar, most of the flesh that there is by the neck has to be cut. So then, if the kain is going to continue and do a malika to cut then the second siman, how did he do it? He cut the first siman, and then he has to cut most of the basar of the neck of the bird, and then he would cut the second siman. So that means that he cut the first siman with a shehiyeh, with a break in between, or doing something else, and then going to the second siman. So the question is that similar to the way it's done by the oila sa'if? So according to the Tanakama, even if he did make a break in between, it is similar to the oila sa'if, because by the oila sa'if as well, the two simanim do not have to be cut together. The second siman is not part of the malika itself. The second siman is a separate mitzvah to separate the head from the body. And therefore, if this is done by the chata sa'if, it makes it similar to the oila sa'if, and it'll passel the chata sa'if. However, Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon Savar, Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon's opinion is ma'akiv, that no, by the malika of the Eilis Ha'oif, the two simanim that you caught are actually all part of the malika itself. The second siman that you caught is not a separate mitzvah. It's all part of the malika itself, and it must be caught both together. So therefore, if by the Eilis Ha'oif, the two simanim must be cut together, so v'kivin the shahiyah, so by the chatas Ha'oif, when you cut one siman, and then you have to cut the other basar around. That's how the malika is done, as the Gemara will soon explain. And then if you would go and now separate the head from the body by cutting a second simin, but you made a break in between, so machatach basar ba'almahu. So by the chatas, if he now cuts the second simin, he's just cutting basar. It's not going to be a malika similar to the Eilis Ha'oif, and therefore it's not going to pass all the chatas Ha'oif. Again, because the psul of a chatas Ha'oif is only if you do it in a way that's similar to the Eilis Ha'oif. A third explanation for the machlokes regarding cutting off the head of the body by the chatas Ha'oif, whether that will pass or not. And again, the point here is it going to be similar to the Eilis Ha'oif or not? So Abaye says the argument here is regarding this point. Roiv basar ma'akiv ikebenayu. This point that I mentioned before, that when you do the malika by the chatas Ha'oif, you cut one simin, and then the kohen has to cut most of the basar around the neck of the bird. Is that detail that when you do the malika, you also have to cut most of the basar? Is that ma'akiv or not? That's the machlokes over here. If it is ma'akiv, so then everybody agrees, both the Tanakama or the Tana of the Mishnah and Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon agree that when it comes to the Ayla, if you're going to make a shehiyah, if you make a break between cutting one siman and cutting another siman, that it's going to be puzzle. But over here, though, regarding the chatas Ha'oif, the shaila is the person going to come to make by the chatas Ha'oif? If you say that he could separate he could cut both simanim, is he going to come to do it similar to the Eilis Ha'oif? If you say that cutting roiv of the basar, after you cut one siman, you must cut roiv of the basar, so then he's not going to cut the two simanim together. So therefore, it's never going to be done like the Eilis Ha'oif. But if you say that cutting the roiv of the basar by the chatas Ha'oif, after you cut one siman, you must cut the roiv of the basar. So even if he's going to cut another siman, it's not going to be done together with the first siman that he cut. So therefore, it's not going to be similar to the Eilis Ha'oif, and therefore it's not a problem. It's not going to be possible. That's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon. So all these three explanations here is based on the same point. The psul of a chatas Ha'oif is only if it would make it similar to the Eilis Ha'oif. And therefore there's a machlokes whether you're allowed to cut off the head by the chatas Ha'oif, will it become similar to the Eilis Ha'oif or not? So the Gemara here brings that Ubeplukte, the Rab Zera, Rab Shmuel, but Rab Yitzchak. The last two explanations that we said here, it was already said by earlier Amiraim, Rab Zera and Rab Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. Chadama, one of them said, Shehiyeh b'simin sheni b'Eilis Ha'oif ma'akvi ikke b'inayu, that the machlokes between the Tana of the Mishnah and Rabbi Elazar bar Rab Shimon was regarding the point of whether if you make a shehiyeh, if you make a break between cutting one siman and another siman by the Eilis Ha'oif, whether that will be ma'akiv, whether that will passel or not, and therefore that affects also the status of the chatas Ha'oif, where you make that break. And then if you would cut the second siman, will it become similar to the Eilis Ha'oif or not, as we explained before? And v'chad another opinion said, like the last pshat that was said here, Abaye's pshat, roiv basar ma'akiv ikke b'inayu. The argument is regarding the chatas Ha'oif. After you cut the first siman, do you have to then cut roiv of the basar before you would go ahead and cut another siman? And that's the machlokes, whether you have to cut that roiv basar or not, whether it's ma'akiv or not whether it's ma'akiv, whether you must, and therefore that's the machlokes of whether the chatas Ha'oif should be geyser that you'll do it similar to the Eilis Ha'oif. Now, so the Gemara explains what's taka the source of this detail. That's the basis of the two last pshatim that the Gemara said here. So Meklal, from the two pshatim that it says here in this machlokes, we could learn out to be inon the roiv basar b'tchila, that you must have, or the Bach takes out the dalet, be'inon roiv basar b'tchila. The way the malika is done is you cut one siman, and then with the fingernail he has to cut most of the basar. That's how it has to be done. And therefore the whole machlokes here, whether the chatas Ha'oif could become similar to the Eilis Ha'oif or not. So what's the source of this? So the Gemara says, Tanya, as we learned this in a Braise, it says, Keitzad Malkin Chatas Ha'oif. How is the malika with the chatas Ha'oif done? Chayte chshedra. So with the fingernail he cuts the spine. And then umafrekes, he cuts the bone of the neck of the bird. Beloy roiv basar, without yet cutting most of the basar that there is there by the neck. Ad shemagia leveshet oilekana, he comes to one of the pipes of the bird, either the veshet or the kana, and he gia leveshet oilekana. Then he comes with his nail to the veshet or the kana. So chaytich simen echad oy rubai, you have to cut one simen or most of one of the pipes of the bird, and then after that, v'roiv basar imay. Then you have to cut most of the meat or most of the basar, most of the neck of the bird with it. So this is where you see over here in the Braisa that by the chatas ha'oif, after you cut one simin, afterwards you cut roiv of the basar. Now, ba'oila, by the carbon oila, shnayim, oiroiv shnayim. You have to cut both of the pipes or most of both of the pipes. This is the basis of the two explanations that the Gemara said before in the machlokes of the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Elazar ben Rab Shimon.